Hello and welcome back to Substream News. I am Joseph, your presenter. Today we're going to be looking at some tech upgrades and updates, as well as some costly mistakes in the tech community. Now, if that sort of thing appeals to you, remember you can just quickly scroll down, click subscribe, like the video, turn on notifications if you're feeling extra generous, and that really helps grow this channel. Without further ado, let's begin. First up this week, Google is testing their new AI model, which is reportedly 7 times more powerful than ChatGPT. So Google's upcoming Gemini 1.5 AI, which powers the free tier of their chatbot, will be able to handle 1.5 million tokens, which is far more than the 128,000 tokens that they and their rivals currently process. So I've got a quote here from the Google Labs team. They say, "Before today, the largest context window in the world for a publicly available large language model was 200,000 tokens. We've been able to significantly increase this, running up to 1 million tokens consistently." So the question is Google AI going to be ChatGPT's biggest rival, or is it simply going to dominate the industry? Well, if we look at past products from Google, it really could go either way. Who remembers Google Plus, Google Glass, Google Video, Google Buzz, Google Daydream, Google Allo? There's so many more products that didn't fail, but of course there's so many that really are amazing, like AdWords, like Google Maps, Google Earth. There are really impressive products, so really who knows which way this could go. But if they are able to make a tool 700% more powerful than ChatGPT, it could be a big winner. Now, you may remember in the last video, I mentioned regulation and how it's needed to protect people from the use of AI, especially in the medical industry. Well, regulation is being introduced or increased in the EU through the Digital Services Act. So for those living in the European Union, small businesses will now have to comply to the same rules as the big businesses, the major platforms. And so the rules that are applied to Instagram, Twitter, Facebook are now going to be across the board. But the regulations are not about AI, because it seems that nobody really knows what to do with AI. But these new rules are about content moderation and online advertising. So Europeans will be exempt, the small businesses will be exempt if they have less than 50 employees and an annual turnover of under 10 million euros. So what are the changes? Well, there will be a ban on targeting underage users with ads based on their personal data. There will also be a ban on targeting anyone based on sensitive data like sexual preference or religious beliefs. And sites will have to provide a reason to users when their content or account has been moderated, and offer a way of complaining or challenging that decision. And there will also be new rules around flagging illegal content, goods and services found on platforms. So, do you think these are good changes, and are you impacted? Now, I can name one guy who we often talk about on this channel who probably isn't happy with the EU's decision to change this, and that's Elon Musk, as the EU Digital Services Act already has an open investigation against X for the dissemination of illegal content. But we don't like to get political, so I won't get further into it. Instead, let's move on to the next story. A few videos ago, we took a look at Apple Vision Pro headsets, and we laughed at how The Simpsons had already predicted them, and how kind of ridiculous people look walking their dog with it on, or crossing the road, or responding to emails on the subway. It does look a bit bizarre, and that might just be because the headsets are so big. And with that bigness comes some discomfort. So this is no laughing matter, but some of the early customers are complaining of headaches, migraines, and even burst eye vessels. Now, while these claims have not been substantiated yet, they could become a bit of a trend, and that is bad news for Apple, who are hoping that these headsets would take over the world. So with all of these complaints about discomfort, headaches, even chafing, and generally just being uncomfortable for long periods of time, a lot of people are reportedly returning their headsets, and you have 2 weeks to do so from the date of purchase to get your $3,500 refund. But there's good news. Of course, there's good news. So the good news is that there's a rival called Brilliant Labs, and they've made some very funky new glasses. Now they're rounded spectacles, and they look a bit like John Lennon or Gandhi or Steve Jobs kind of glasses. And they are just $350 non-prescription glasses, so a tenth of the price. So if Brilliant Labs sounds familiar, that's because that's the team that built Pokemon Go, which took over the world, 8 years ago? And was a great trend. Well, they've used some of that technology, but they've also leveraged all sorts of AI tools. So built into these small glasses, amazingly, is ChatGPT 4, also speech recognition technology Whisper, also Stability AI's Stable Diffusion, and Perplexity, which we talked about in another video too. So the makers claim that these glasses give you superpowers, and they can process visual information, they can generate images, they can recognize and translate speech in real time, search the web, and do so much more. They are very useful, but they won't have the same power and capabilities as an Apple Vision Pro. That can completely change your environment, is more augmented reality, and really is just probably 10 times more powerful, and then justifies the 10x price. Now, to use these new glasses, which are called Frame from Brilliant Labs, you will need to pair them to a smartphone app, and they don't work independently. So the app is necessary, and I imagine it uses Bluetooth. Now, the question you have to ask is, how much AR VR do you need in your life? Because unless you want to do some really powerful stuff, a much cheaper, simple, lightweight alternative like this, which doesn't cause migraines or blood vessel bursting, could be the alternative for you. So I encourage you to look at Frame. Personally, I prefer them, and I could see myself using them. Now, the CEO and co-founder, Bobak Tavenger, is quoted as saying this. Now, I really like this quote. "We are entering an age of embodied AI, and Frame very much represents a big step in that direction. Our aspiration has always been to make devices that foster understanding, empathy, and connection, so that this advent of intelligent computing is characterized more by genuine human well-being than we've seen from the smartphone." I'll tell you why I love this quote. Because it feels like ChatGPT wrote it. The more I read it, the more I believe that an AI actually wrote his quote. I have no proof to back that up, but it feels like it. Anyway, 10% of the price, 5% of the weight. It's really light, really minimalist, very useful. Do you think Frame is a better alternative? And do you like the design? Could you imagine wearing it? Or would you walk around wearing those glasses? Or would you prefer to walk around wearing the big Apple Vision Pro headsets? Most of you, I imagine, will say neither. So let's move on. And finally, on a lighter note, we have a landmark case for AI. So Air Canada has agreed to pay this guy, this Jake Moffat guy, a pretty small amount because the chatbot on Air Canada's website said that they have a policy to give a partial refund for bereavement, and his grandmother had just died. Now, the thing is, such a policy doesn't exist, or if it does exist, he didn't qualify for it. Now, he was pretty miffed, and he claims he should get the money, so he took Air Canada to court, and he won. The AI chatbot said that to get his bereavement claim, he just had to file some kind of report, and he could get up to 90% of his airfare back. Now, this was back in November 2022. Now, the airline's actual bereavement policy does not include that post-fund refund, and specifically states that you must apply for the refund before. So he flew from Vancouver to Toronto and back, and that cost about $1,200 Canadian dollars. He thought he was going to get some of his money back, and the ChatGPT confirmed, but the airline said no. Well, what's Air Canada's stance on that? Well, they said the ChatGPT bot is a separate legal entity to them, and they cannot vouch for what it says. Well, that completely goes against the point of having it on your website, right? If you're going to have a chatbot, it should be prepared with all of the accurate information to help your customers instead of lying or tricking or misleading them. So, well, the tribunal completely agreed, and Air Canada agreed to the payout to Mr. Moffat for the grand total sum of 483 Canadian dollars. The next day, the chatbot was not to be seen. So rest in peace, Air Canada's chatbot. I imagine it will be back in the future at some point, but for now, gone. And that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you for watching. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate you staying. This is Substream News. I am Joseph, and really please subscribe. We need all the support we can get to grow this channel and keep giving you great news about technology, medicine, futurism, dystopia, and loads more. Thank you for watching. Thanks for being part of our community. We will see you next week. Goodbye.